Hello everybody and welcome. It's been a while since I've done a video of my property, where my house is actually at. This is a location where I've chosen to do a, no-mow rewilding approach to, I guess, an ecosystem recovery type of deal. What I envisioned was a food forest, a place where I could walk around, where there's a place for a habitat for different animals, and also food for myself. We're looking at, of course, another plant that I have no idea what it's called, but that's volunteered in my yard. We also saw a maple and a walnut, and I wanted to show you some of the effects of shade and surviving through a drought. Now I haven't watered any of this property. What I've done is I've just maintained these mown trails, and I've planted out everything from pawpaws to zucchini, to apple trees and everything in between, all sorts of different bushes. I wanted to show you one of the pawpaws that survived, which these seem to be very hard to get to grow, at least when they're small. They need a lot of shade, and this one's doing great, but as you can see, the sun comes up almost directly above us. It'll kind of arc to the upper right of your computer there, your video, and this one is doing just fine. Same as this other walnut tree that's sitting here, and all these, whatever they are. I just kind of wanted to point out the diversity of what is naturally here, and then what I've tried to add to it. You can see another volunteer tree there. And I'll show you, here's another, if I can find it, here we go. Here's a pawpaw that did not do so well. But you can see it's already in the full sun, about 10 o'clock in the morning. It gets full sun pretty much all day. And that's unfortunate. Now this might actually have gotten enough energy from the leaves to put into the roots to sprout up next year. And I'll show you what has actually happened to another one right over here. This one I've been watching for the past 2.5 years. And here it is. So, I mean, maybe over the last couple of years in like really bad conditions, maybe it's hardy enough to survive droughts. But as you can see, it's just in the middle of a mowed area. A lot of the area under here used to be a driveway, so that's why I guess it drains too fast and it can't support even simple grass. But you can see it's just kind of a patch. As you go a little further down the trail, and it's perfectly fine. But of course, there's some mega tree there. I don't know, not sure if that's a mulberry or what it is, but that one's doing just fine. Another volunteer. But this one has actually changed locations twice. I mean, I don't remember exactly where it was planted before, but it was stuck in this general direction and died, resprouted, and then it died again, and then this spring it popped up, which is pretty awesome. And you can see one of my old flags here. I guess I'll take that with me. So, let's talk about plant succession and kind of letting nature take its course. So none of these maple trees, none of these walnut trees, any of those things, like none of those I've planted. But there are some things I've planted that have been doing just fine by letting, the ecosystem develop on its own. So all this grass over the last few weeks has been beaten down, maybe by groundhogs or some other animal. The grasses are going through their natural cycle and they're falling over. You can see the lilies that I've planted. Here's a Cordelian cherry that I planted. There's a apple that was initially shocked after I planted it, and now is resprouting, which is really cool. Apple Sweet 16. So I mean, it was a healthy tree when I bought it, and it all died back. And now we have other things that are growing up next to it to support it. Here is a autumn olive that of course is doing well. It seems impossible to kill either autumn olives or seaberries, so I'm glad that I planted all those out. And you can see there's just trees are popping up, and wherever this grass falls down, it just exposes the rest of them. But I'll show you kind of how the grass has protected some of these trees over time as we come through here. Of course, these maples that have been sitting here have all volunteered, and they've grown up in between the grasses. And I have hundreds more of these, and they're all sugar maples, which is amazing. Then I have an aronia berry that I planted. There's another walnut tree just to the east of it. But yeah, just last year all the taller grasses were shading that so it could get to that point, and now it's just taken off. Now that the grasses have fallen down. I wanted to bring you to, let's see, over here I have a bunch of fruit trees. But I think the best place to go, at least for succession, that I thought was uniquely interesting, just the other day, well, last night I was walking around trying to see how everything had been faring after my trip. I was gone for a couple of weeks, and here's one of the 4 cherry bushes that I planted, and as you can see, of course there's maple trees doing pretty well, and they've all grown considerably this year. But yeah, now all this grass is fallen down, and the cherry bush is more than happy to take all the sunlight at this point, because it's a mature plant now instead of just a seedling that was just planted, or a small shoot or what have you. And this is just a really cool spot here where I have asparagus. There's a giant about to flower thistle, and then all of these pollinators that I didn't plant. I mean, maybe it was one of the random seeds, a handful of seeds that I've thrown in this area, I don't know, but just to let it all go wild. A lot of this stuff can be chopped and dropped and added to my compost or to the area to provide more shade to the soil, that type of thing. And of course, another plant that is impossible to kill are sunchokes, or Jerusalem artichokes. And who knows how many pounds and pounds of food is in there. Really, really incredible how well these grow. And I wanted to show you, so I've shown a couple of people this area here of these strawberries, and these are ever-bearing, so they're all done for the year. They're trying to, yeah, it looks like they're trying to replant themselves. I could clear off a space, try and get it further down, hopefully help it to re-root and then spread. I don't know how effective that's going to be, but it was a worry of mine that these grasses that were popping up were actually going to block the sun, and all the plant did was it just grew that way. It was based like right here, and then it just went toward the sun. So there really wasn't any upkeep on my part. And of course, there's another little patch right there. So nature finds its way, and I mean, this was just purpose kind of set up that it was going into a walkway, so there's going to be no blockage on this side. So it's not like that huge tuft of grass or whatever killed strawberries. They both found a way to coexist. And if you can see here, there's a couple of comfrey plants, three, that have finally come up this year. A whole bunch of random grasses, and of course another maple tree. These raspberries that I'd planted that were completely surrounded by, oh, here's some more amazing thistle. See the thorns on that? These are going to be beautiful here in a couple, I don't know, 2 weeks. But yeah, the purple thistle is pretty much ending right now. Ow, 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 ow. The purple thistle is ending now. So now I guess it's this plant's turn to bloom. But yeah, back to the raspberries. So these are yellow and raspberries. That throughout the last 2.5 months, I've like kind of waited in there and just made sure that these plants were still here. And then when I came back, some other animal, I guess, had used that to kind of widen the path here. But the interesting thing was, and I think I made a video about it, but all of these were obviously shorter, and the grass was much higher. So I was worried. I was like, well, I don't want them to not get sun, because plants compete for sun. But I've noticed that now that they're exposed, maybe they're exposed to direct sunlight a little bit too soon, because this one's browning a little bit. You can see this, this leaf has been curled all the way back. And they're raspberries, so I don't expect them to, die out or anything, but it's just kind of interesting that, in the midst of basically a huge field, a field of nothing but really thick, tall grasses, these have basically climbed through and made it. And that just kind of showed me the resilience of plants, especially some of the hardier ones like raspberries, and especially those sunchokes. Those never die. It seems to be like aronia berries don't want to die either. Maple trees will live wherever you put them. And if you could just envision, these are 3-year-old trees, and none of them I planted. You can see several of them are quite tall now. For the first 2 years of their life, they were surrounded by all that grass, which I had always been taught that you want to clear a space completely, plant your tree, water it, do whatever you got to do to survive it, to support it. And basically all this stuff just popped up on its own. I haven't mowed this or done anything with it. And I have, 45, 50 maple trees sitting here on top of the autumn olive that I planted. And that's doing just fine right in the middle of a whole bunch of other grasses, and of course all the violets. We have a Seaberry that I planted here. And now that they're all mature trees, they can take more stress from the sun, but as they're very young, they can't. Also, this has been an interesting thing to watch too. So I bought like two different plums. Well, no, like 4 different peaches, 4 different pears. I think 3 different plums. And I planted them. I can't see the reflection, but I can't really see my phone screen, so I'm not even going to bother to point. But right in this general area, I planted a whole bunch of trees and kind of seen how they've reacted to not having very much sun, me not watering it. Let's see what this is. Well, I'm not even, it's a pear. It's a dwarf pear. And it's got some heat stress on it. But it was obviously a pretty large tree when I bought it. And all of this is new growth from this year. And here's another beauty. This is a plum. It's a bubblegum plum. And that thing is just, like, seeing the growth of this, I want to go online and buy like 17 more of these these bubblegum plums. Because there's other plants that haven't done as well. Like this one here. It's basically giving up the fight. But maybe I should have known that a Santa Rosa plum, maybe, I don't know. We're not in Santa Rosa, so, but this one seems to be done. However, other trees have stress on them as well, and they seem to be rebounding now that we've gotten some rain. But keep in mind, all of these trees, there's a pear, so it's upside down. But all of these trees, I would have benefited from some sort of dappled shade, overhead cover. Maybe, if you imagine, if I'd planted like all those trees that I'd shown you, and I'd planted them perhaps in this area. That way, at least the first part of the morning, they get a break, and then they get full sun. It's just something to consider. Some of the, especially pawpaws, I would like to plant them in the sun, in the shade, and several other things. But it's interesting because on this property, who knows, there's so much variance between the ground and different plants, and they're just, we used to have a driveway that went through here. This is a really boggy type of area. So there's a lot of different conditions in this one property. So it's interesting to see which ones struggle, which ones survive. I'd like to have as little inputs as possible. There's another pineapple pear. And it was definitely, it's a sturdy tree when I got it. And we'll see, I'm not sure if this one's gonna make it. But this is all heat stress. If it had some sort of more shade, it probably would have fared a lot better. However, strange enough that these very hardy, much older trees are struggling in the heat. This peach has put on fruit, and it doesn't have any signs of stress or anything. We actually ate one of these 2 days ago, and they're really, really good. I just planted this spring. It's a 4th of July peach. So we had peaches by the 4th of July. I don't know if that's what that means, but you can see some of the leaves have fallen. It has experienced some heat stress, but this peach has done really well. But back to succession, because I guess I'm kind of rambling. I'm just doing more of an update now. But what I'm trying to do is get more evergreens into my property. Just trying to. There we go. So I planted 10 of these. I planted 30 total different, like blue spruce and white pine, all along the circumference or the outer edge of my property. And that's in order to, well, for one, to eventually provide some shade. Maybe not for another 10 years, but to create a visual block between my neighbors and all of that. I guess going back to touching on diversity, just walking around to this area itself, it looks like exactly what I had envisioned when I started this whole thing about 3 years ago. I wanted a place to that I could plant different trees and berry bushes, like fruit trees and berry bushes. And I haven't completely planted out this area. Like I'd have like a couple of apple trees, or at least one of the apple trees that didn't come, I would have liked to put it there. I did get a Seaberry in here. See that here? But no, just the pollinators that have popped up. This mulberry tree, of course. Maybe next year it'll put on fruit. I don't know if they alternate, what that's all about, but this didn't put on any fruit. This one fruited up until about a week or two ago. And then there's one on the far end there that is like ripening its fruit right now. So it's really nice that I have 3 different trees that will fruit at different times. There's another beauty that died up to that point, but then just regrew from a lower point, mostly due to transplant shock, I suppose. But overall, everything has handled the really dry weather. It's been really hot, 90s around here. It's only really rained maybe 3 times in the last 3 weeks, like actual rains that give you like a half an inch of rainfall total, that type of thing. So it's nice to be able to come back from a trip and have everything survive and grow and all that without any of my inputs, any of my tromping around or trying to fine-tune water and all sorts of the other upkeep actions that I could do. Just walking through a path that I kind of wish I would widen. I suppose here I'll show you. So here's another one of those. It's supposed to be a vegetable annual garden bed that guy has taken over. It must be sweet because there's ants all over it. But it's interesting. So this is plantain that I didn't plant, that I could kind of just chop and drop. These are ground cherries that I suppose might be ripe. I'm not sure. Never planted these before. Not sure exactly when their season is. But this is a ground cherry that I bought from the Indiana Organic Gardeners Association plant sale. But I just wanted to point this out because these ground cherries that I planted are doing really well. Even in the sun, it's got, a light layer of wood chips down there. But these are doing really well. My zucchini, just like a couple of the other plants, have just been chewed up and eaten up. And down to the leaves have been eaten off and all sorts of stuff. So, I still have turmeric over there, and I forget what that is. I'll have to look at my notes. Things like that, but my hascat bushes are still doing just fine. And look at that, there's another maple tree. Isn't that something? So I guess take that as a note if you think that you're gonna sheet mulch and stop nature from growing stuff. So just think of that clover. I planted those seeds, like I threw seeds all over here. That came up through a double layer of cardboard and at least 8 inches of wood chips. And it's more than happy. So do I leave it? Do I let nature just take its course and I'll end up with a big old sugar maple? Well, I guess probably will be a sugar maple. I end up with a sugar maple right in the middle of my annual garden bed. And I think, at least for this year, we're gonna leave it, because I'm just trying to step back and envision what it would look like when this one finally snaps those branches and that's gone, so then that tree will be reshaped. At the same time, there'll be another maple tree up here alongside all of these. Yeah, I think it would be pretty cool to put a maple tree there. Well, let a maple tree stay there. Because I always have these on the south side, which will eventually provide shade to these garden beds, which will increase my plant success, at least for annual vegetables. There's very few plants out there, other than maybe the corn you see in a field ran by a corporation, that enjoy 14 hours of direct sun, but apparently this turmeric does, and the another maple tree. And of course the walking onions are fantastic. These look at that. Oh, I don't want to break it, but in the fall, or getting closer to the fall, this will fall over and plant itself. They just gotta, if they were gonna go that way, I just move them over that way. But they are an incredible plant. You can eat all of it. You just take off one of the bulbs, chop it up, put it in your lunch if you want. But I think that's enough wandering around today. I hope you got an idea of what I'm trying to do with plant succession here, messing with different levels of shade, because as you can see, there really is no shade on this property. So if I'm going to be planting things, how do I protect it? How do I protect the plants when they're the most fragile, when they're just starting to sprout, just starting to grow? Some things apparently, like sunchokes, are perfectly fine baking in the sun. This elephant ear that's growing out of this other tree seems to be perfectly happy with that amount of sun. However, you've seen even some of the mature plums and peaches and pears are not too happy with that amount of sun. So that's it for today. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Alright, bye-bye. I'm going to video how big this elderberry is. I think it's an elderberry. Because we're exposing it to sunlight. We trimmed some of the thistle around it. You can already see that the leaves are already curling up because of the sun. But not all of them are doing that. And you can see where it's been planted. Here's one shoot. Another one, another one. Yeah, I mean, it's all over the place. We'll see how this thing fares. Maybe they're boysenberries. Because I don't think elderberry has thorns, do they? Boysenberries do. There should be an elderberry in here, though, I thought. Huh. Yeah, they must be boysenberries. That makes more sense. But it's prolific back here, that's for sure. For 3 plants. Well, anyways, it's about as tall as it is, so see how it fares. Maybe I'll remember this clip, so then when I come back in a couple days, I can make a video.